Welcome to a special extra edition of The Source. I'm taping this literally moments after the Calgary Police Service laid charges against 3 different suspects from the pro-Hamas riots in Calgary on July 18th. This is great news. And it happened because of you, the loyal and passionate Canadians who watch The Source on the Sun News Network. Let me explain. You'll recall these deeply disturbing images, physical violence right on the steps of Calgary City Hall, where pro-Palestinian thugs sent half a dozen peaceful Calgarians to the hospital. They were beaten so badly, including a mother and a daughter, who were beaten to the ground while the mob literally chanted, "Death to the Jews." It was a disgrace. It's how they do things in Gaza, not Calgary. It was a violent mob. But even more disconcerting was the don't give a damn attitude shown by Calgary's civic leaders. This riot was right outside Mayor Naheed office, but he couldn't be bothered to condemn it in anything but the most timid and vague language on a blog post. What a coward. He refused to call it a riot or refer to its explicitly anti-Semitic nature. The police chief was even worse. At first he lied, issuing a public statement that the police were there on hand and responded to the riot immediately, but that was obviously untrue, as the video shows. The police department issued several other untrue excuses before admitting they just didn't show up at the riot. What they haven't admitted yet, but is painfully obvious, is that this was no accident. It was a deliberate strategy of a politically correct police chief and a politically correct mayor who would rather let a riot run unpoliced than risk offending a group of Muslim extremists who vote for the mayor. Well, this is Canada, not Gaza, and if Calgary civic leaders wouldn't stand up to these thugs, well, we would. So we immediately organized a massive pro-Canada rally right on the steps of City Hall. We refused to concede that territory to the pro-Hamas thugs. 900 Calgarians came out to sing "O Canada," wave Canadian and Israeli flags, and denounce Hamas terrorism, and stand with the Middle East's only liberal democracy, Israel. And even more than that, people there were furious that the city's leaders wanted to sweep this under the rug, to be willfully blind to it. In fact, at the same time as we had our 900-person pro-Canada, pro-freedom, pro-peace rally, a small group of Arab extremists were there that night too, shouting "Heil Hitler" at us. And the city's politicians, police, and media pretended they didn't hear it. Remember? Here's the video.
This is Canada. I don't care about Hezbollah. Your
Well, saying "Heil Hitler" isn't a crime, but beating up a whole family and sending them to the hospital is. And though the Calgary police ask the public for help all the time to identify criminals, they refuse to do so here. Again, why? Well, I've learned enough not to wait around for politicians. And yeah, if you're wondering, a police chief is a politician. So we did 2 things besides the rally. The rally was important, but it was more symbolic. We actually fought back, and by we, I mean you, our Sun viewers. We sent a massive petition to the police commission and the mayor demanding charges be laid against the criminals. Thousands of Calgarians and other Canadians signed it. It was the largest petition ever received by the Calgary Police Commission. But again, that's just words. We did deeds. We, and by we, I mean you, our viewers, raised more than $5,000 to hire one of Calgary's top lawyers to help the family that was beat up, to help them navigate the bureaucracy at the police department and activate real police, not the cocktail party police like the police chief, but the real cops, the ones who still like to solve crimes, not politic. So we did that. And then we did something sort of amazing. We found the suspects ourselves. Based on the model of Crime Stoppers, we set up a website called riotstoppers.com. And we put actual photos and video clips taken of the riots by bystanders on their cell phones. We showed 6 different rioters, and we asked the public for help. And we, again, I mean you, raised the funds for the rewards. We offered to pay anyone $500 for each and every suspect we could conclusively identify. Anyone could do it. People who were there, or people who knew the rioters, maybe from school or from work, or people who were just good at being internet sleuths and could go through Facebook pages and track them down. Well, we launched riotstoppers.com on Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And before 9 p.m., we started to receive our first tips. And by 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, literally 14 hours after putting the pictures up, we had 4 of the suspects clearly identified. It was amazing. So on Saturday morning, I sent the information we had to the victim's lawyer, who forwarded it to the police officer in charge of the investigation. I chose not to publicize the names and identities of the suspects because if I did so before they were charged, that could tip them off and perhaps make the charges less likely or less effective. So on Saturday morning, I kept the findings of riotstoppers.com private until charges were laid. Now, let me say this. I am certain that Calgary's police, I mean the real police, the real cops, found that information themselves too. I'm certain of it because our tipster found it by meticulously going through Facebook. I am sure that the 2 Calgary police officers who've been working on this case for so long had them as well. But today, look at the great news. Literally moments ago, the Calgary police press conference showed this. Watch.
The following people have been charged relating to 3 assault victims. Aziz Mohammed Mahdi, 18 years old, of Calgary, is charged with 2 counts of assault. A 16-year-old male from Calgary, not able to be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, is charged with 1 count of assault. And Arlsan Han, 27, of Calgary, is charged with 1 count of assault. The 3 accused are scheduled to next appear in court September 15th. We expect charges against a 4th man to be laid within the next 24 hours or so, and his name will be released at a later time.
Now, let me say this. I have been exceedingly critical of Calgary's police chief, and I stand by every word of that. He's politically correct. He's afraid of upsetting extremist Muslims. He's afraid of upsetting the mayor. He did not respond to the original riot properly, and he has not handled the last 3.5 weeks properly either. But I say again, I have nothing but praise for the real police, not the fancy brass, but the real cops who did the investigation in a painstaking manner. They care about the law and enforcing it, as today's charges show. Charges that were brought probably more quickly than had these police been lackadaisical. I'm talking about the street cops. Look, let me just show you about one of the characters charged today. Here's the Facebook page of one of the thugs. Arslan Khan is his name. He was charged today just to remind you of what he did. Here's the video of him in the riot that we slowed down for you. He's the big guy in the purple shirt and comes charging in, fists in air, looking to lay a haymaker on someone who definitely wasn't expecting to be hit that day. I'll have more for you on tomorrow's show about him and the others. This is just our quick online extra edition. I have no doubt the police found these identities of the rioters on their own. Our tipster simply dug through the internet, something the police surely did. The real police, I mean, not the fancy chief. But we found them too and passed them on to the real police and cooperated by keeping our results confidential until today. But even if we hadn't found any tips, even if they weren't necessary from an investigative point of view, I think merely the presence of riotstoppers.com had a salutary effect. We signaled to the public, signaled to the city's leaders, to the sleeping lifeguard of a chief that we were not going to tolerate street violence as the new normal in Calgary. We just weren't. And by the way, there are still suspects at large, and you can go to riotstoppers.com and help find them. This is a huge victory for the Sun News Network, and by that I mean you. We reported things about the riots that the other media refused to do. We sent the largest petition in police history demanding action. We hired a lawyer for the victims. We set up riotstoppers.com and sent in 4 leads. And then we kept mum about it until today. So let me thank you, to you, our viewers, to you, our donors, and to the 2 street cops in Calgary who have taken us one step closer to justice. Thank you to Calgary's finest. And thank you to our viewers, Canada's finest. This is a special extra edition of The Source. We'll have much more tomorrow. Good night.